As per the latest information, Volodymyr Zelenskyy is already on his way to meet United States President Donald Trump. What all is going to be there on the cards? How crucial is that meeting going to be? Let's discuss all of that. As Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy prepares to meet US President Donald Trump in Washington, the stakes could not be higher than that. The world watches. Will this be a turning point in the Ukraine war or another diplomatic deadlock? At the heart of the talks is a strategic deal on rare earth minerals, with Ukraine agreeing to allocate 50% of its mineral revenue to a joint US-Ukrainian fund. For Washington, securing these resources is key to reducing reliance on China. But for Kiev, the real battle lies elsewhere: security guarantees and sustained US aid. Trump's stance is very clear. The US will not offer sweeping security commitments. Instead, he insists Europe must step in. This contradicts Zelensky's urgent push for concrete assurances to deter further Russian aggression. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, US-Russia talks, excluding Kiev, are already underway, is what we've been given to understand. Speculation now swirls over a potential backdoor settlement. Donald Trump appears to be pursuing a Ukraine deal directly with Vladimir Putin, sidestepping Kiev and European governments. This aligned with Putin's preference for US-only negotiations on European security, leaving Ukraine and Europe to bear the consequences. With another round of discussions set for Istanbul, is Ukraine being edged out of its own war negotiations is the question that we continue to ask here. European leaders too are scrambling. British PM Keir Starmer and French President Emmanuel Macron are weighing options, even considering peacekeepers, an idea Moscow swiftly dismissed. Even they discussed this with Donald Trump also during their bilateral talks. As the White House meeting looms, the question now remains: will Trump broker an end to the war on his terms, or will Ukraine find itself navigating an increasingly uncertain future?
Zelenskyy is going to be coming on Friday. That's now confirmed, and we're going to be signing an agreement, which will be a very big agreement. And I want to thank Howard and Scott for the job you guys did in putting it together. Really did an amazing job. And that'll be on rare earth and other things. The previous administration put us in a very bad position, but we've been able to make a deal where we're going to get our money back, and we're going to get a lot of money in the future.
Ця угода може бути великий успіх мати.
This deal could be a great success, or it could pass quietly. And the big success depends on our conversation with President Trump. There is no agreement, yet that comes next. It would be more difficult, more serious, because the next agreement is about the fund. It will include certain partner relations, money, etc. This agreement must be ratified in the Ukrainian parliament. Of course, this agreement is about economics. But I ask for there be at least an understanding that we are seeing things the same way, that all of it is part of future security guarantees. So, even in the framework agreement, I wanted for there to be at least a sentence, security guarantees for Ukraine. As far as I was briefed by the government officials, this sentence is there now. I don't remember, probably in point 10 or in some other, but it is important that it is there.
Let me introduce our guest for this particular segment to take the discussions further. We are being joined by former Indian diplomat, Ambassador Suresh K. Goel, and fellow Arabian Peninsula Institute from Washington, D.C., Adrian Calamel. A very good morning from India to both of you. First of all, Adrian, coming to you. This is going to be a very, very clear messaging meeting, right? Because Donald Trump is very clear with regards to providing security to Ukraine. On the other hand, it does look like that Zelenskyy is trying to throw his last punches in terms of, getting a better deal with the US.
Yeah, I think, great question, Sakshi, and thank you for having me on the show. I think the most important thing, and Zelenskyy is right in outlining this, is that he needs certain security guarantees. Now, it's already been stated that NATO is off the table, NATO membership, at least under a Trump administration. But Zelenskyy, the Eastern European countries, countries that are even part of NATO, need to know that Vladimir Putin cannot, let's say, okay, Ukraine is safe now, or the U.S. has some type of deterrence there or put an end to this war, we're going to pivot and start trouble somewhere else. So Zelensky's really, I, Trump put out the trial balloon of the rare mineral earth and repaying of the war. Now it's really, I believe, it's up to Trump to come through on our side and say, okay, we're going to provide you some type of security guarantees that won't include NATO, but it also won't include something that he had said, having American contractors on the ground working in mines is enough deterrence. No one's going to bomb them. Well, I think that's just, that's resting on hope, which is dangerous.
Right. Ambassador Suresh, my question to you would be like very, very simple. What does this growing bonhomie between Putin and Trump is going to, send out sort of a signal to Zelensky? What can be inferred from those talks happening on the sidelines between Russia and US, and now this meeting that we are looking at? The world is watching this one.
Saki, thank you very much. First of all, I'm happy to be on the show here. And did you say a very simple question to me? Thank you very much. I do hope that the other questions are simpler than what you have just asked me. Look, what is happening now in Europe, and I'm saying particularly Europe because we have always maintained, and that is what President Trump is saying, that the security issue for Europe must be dealt with by Europe. America is not going to pay for it. And that is what he's saying about NATO, he's saying about Europe, he's saying about Ukraine. And therefore, what I'm seeing here now involving Russia, Europe, Ukraine, USA is more complex and more complicated than any chess match I've seen so far. Here, on the one hand, you have Russia and the USA talking to each other, basically Putin and Trump talking to each other through back channels. And Trump has already described Putin as a fellow understanding of president who knows what they have gone through together, Russia hoax, he described it as. So clearly, I do not think that Trump is going to put tremendous pressure on Putin to give way on Ukraine or Ukraine's membership of NATO or return to 2014 borders. No, I don't think so. Ukraine, Trump is not going to have Ukraine as a member of NATO. He has made it amply clear. And his team is not going to work on Ukraine getting back to the 2014 border. He has made it very clear. Europe, Ken Starmer and Macron, they are prepared to put boots on the ground. Putin has already said no to NATO troops in Ukraine. Let us understand, having dealt with Russia for more than 20 years, I know that for Russia to have NATO in any form in Ukraine is a strict no. So any kind of a deal which does not have Ukraine as a member of NATO, which does not have NATO troop security in Ukraine, which does not guarantee Ukraine reclaiming the borders, I don't know what kind of a deal would there be eventually. And that's the reason I'm saying it's more complex than any chess match I've seen so far. Let us see what happens today in the evening. It's going to be very interesting. My own sense is that Trump, being what he is, he's more interested in the deal on the minerals than anything else.
Absolutely. And on that particular line only, Adrian, my next question would be to you, because we have got the development from yesterday only with regards to the meeting between Keir Starmer as well as Donald Trump, and this line coming in from there that Russia is acting well. So it is like I have already said that it does look like there is a sort of growing bonhomie between Russia as well as US. But then also let's talk about what France and at the same time Britain trying to do. They are trying to play the role of the peacekeeper. So what about that? And what kind of role can they actually play?
What role can Europe play, Macron, Starmer, as far as this goes, as far as peacekeeping, bringing this war to an end? I don't know if they can bring this war to an end. There's never really been a strategy. If you tell me what the strategy is, I can tell you if it's working, but it's been a stalemate for quite some time here. I think there needs to be concessions on both sides. my honest hope is that the Europeans, that Trump, that the democratic nations start to understand that when you're dealing with an individual like Putin and a country in Moscow, you're not just making a deal with him. Tehran and Ali Khamenei is also watching, as well as Beijing and Xi Jinping. So it's not, you can't make these deals in an incubator. We have to be working with our allies, and seeing this strain, I hope there's a little bit of a jolt to the system that we're seeing right here, and then everybody starts to work together that is on the side of nations that are democracies. I mean, we're not in the business of nation building, democracy building, but we should stand by democracies, or else the other countries that are on they call themselves the axis of resistance or whatever they may call themselves, are aligned against our best interests. Countries such as the United States, Canada, Europe, India, Japan, Philippines, etc.
Right. And Ambassador Suresh, circling back to the question of NATO, because it does look like that US and NATO stance is to have more of the European countries in defense of Ukraine. Do you think that strategy is going to push Russia to sort of, pacify their aggression against the Ukraine? How far do you think the things have reached?
You see, that is the point. Any kind of a deal will need to ensure security of Ukraine, and at the same time assure Russia that the NATO is not going to get into its battle. Now, that is a contradiction in Ukraine. So if Europe comes to the rescue of Ukraine in terms of security guarantees, they will have to station their troops in Ukraine. They will be NATO troops. You can't say that UK and France are not NATO. So on the one hand, security requires stationing of some kind of security system over there, forces, troops over there, or air force systems over there. On the other hand, you are breaching on an understanding reached in 1991. I know James Baker, I've seen the document. There was an understanding, I was dealing with Russia at that time. There was an understanding given to Gorbachev that there will be no expansion of NATO to the borders of Russia, and it is happening. So therefore, it's a contradiction. It's a huge complexity. And that's the reason I said we will need to really wait and see what kind of a security matrix they can develop to assure both Russia and Ukraine. And that's a huge, huge conundrum.
Definitely. Ambassador Suresh and Adrian, thank you so much for joining us for this conversation here on News9. That was certainly an eye-opener. All eyes are now going to be on that much anticipated meeting between Volodymyr Zelenskyy and Donald Trump.